I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Dr. Ray Wong is an associate professor, perfusion program director, clinical perfusionist, and biomedical engineer with over 30 years of experience in clinical practice, academia, and research. Dr. Wong obtained a degree in biomedical engineering from Syracuse University and a doctorate in physiological sciences from the University of Arizona, Tucson. In Arizona, he also obtained his perfusion training and returned to direct the program in 2013. He has practiced as a clinical perfusionist since 2000, initially at Mayo Clinic, Arizona, and now at Banner University Medical Center, Tucson. He has also practiced as a clinical engineer with the Artificial Heart Program in Tucson with Abiomed in the past, and in 2019, he was appointed as the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Extracorporeal Technology, which he will be talking about today. Thanks, Ray.
Good morning, everybody. I didn't get the memo about the 4th of July. Yeah, that's okay. I'm wearing it's semi-formal for Malaysia. I grew up in Malaysia, so thank you very much, Tammy, for the introduction. She's for real. She's awesome. She even donated to my son's GoFundMe for his Eagle project. So did Richard, actually. Rich is already left, but you know, there's something about CHOP. Those guys are just awesome over there. It must be the leadership or something. Anyway, I'm here to talk about the journal. And you know, this is stuff I wish I heard when I was a student, just to figure out how journals work. And there's also stuff here for, you know, people who've known the journal all these years, but there's been quite a few changes in the last year or so. So let's see. Yeah, so, you know, the idea is to update you guys and to tell you a little bit about the process of producing a journal. Disclosures, I have no funding from industry. My travel here was supported by Sanibel. Thank you. It's a wonderful opportunity to come talk about the journal. I am the editor-in-chief as a volunteer. None of us editors are paid in any way. And full disclosure, I'm on-the-job trained on that. Right? There's no real training program. You kind of get into it, and you're mentored by people. For me, I had Dr. Julie Wagner, I had Bob Groom, and Jeff Riley, all stammers. All those guys were helping me, and Rob Baker too, but he stepped out of the room. But he was awesome. So you may or may not be aware, but JECT has been around since 55 years, right? A long time. So if you look at those journal covers there, if you recognize the first 3, I think you're probably a baby boomer. All right. If you recognize the 4th one, that's my generation, Generation X. And then, you know, the last one over there is, I guess, millennials and so forth. So, yeah. So those are all the covers, and this was presented by L. Stammers in a editorial last year. So the journal, as you may or may not know, is owned by MSECT. It's MSECT's journal. In the publishing world, that's called self-publishing, self-published by MSECT. I figured that out pretty early on. So the journal's revenue mainly, you know, comes from the society, as well as ads and subscriptions. Subscriptions from libraries, they used to pay a lot of money, and for non-members, companies, and so forth. And so the journal was a print journal until about 2020. Up till that time, MSEC members had this perk where they get mailed the issue every quarter. It's only published. The journal had a website. It was part of MSEC's website, so you could go get the full archive, access to the full archive in the website. The last 20 years or so, the articles also became available for free after a 6-month embargo on PubMed Central. But there were some challenges for MSECT, as well as a lot of other small society-sponsored journals. Libraries were starting to, cut back on their budgets. They didn't want to pay for subscriptions anymore. And when we switched to a print, then we were going to lose more ad revenues and stuff. We were at risk of losing. The website also was not designed for us to no longer be a print journal. It wasn't, if you need to have a robust website if you're going to be digital only. Our website was behind an MSEC paywall. The search functions were really poor. I get emails from people like Rob Baker, like, I can't find my article. There was no journal metrics. You look at any other modern journal websites, you can find all kinds of information about who cites your papers and so forth. And PubMed Central, even though it had a good amount of our articles, didn't have the legacy stuff, the old stuff going all the way back. We lacked modern features. We didn't have this digital object identifier. So, every article nowadays, there's a permanent link that you can share and people can just hit that link and go straight to the article. We didn't have that. So our authors were not benefiting that way. And we weren't publishing ahead of print. Some people like to do that. They don't want to be scooped. So there were a lot of things we were lacking. When I came on board, I learned from the Council of Science Editors. I participated in the conferences, learned as much as I could about what's out there and what we were missing. And so we started the process of looking for new options and trying to find a new publishing partner. Now, we don't know much about publishing, really, even though we've been doing it for so long. So we had to engage with a consultant, and we pretty quickly realized that none of the big guys were going to touch us. The Elsevier's or the Sage, they were not interested in a small journal like us, even though we've been around a long time. But we still put it out there. We put out an RFP, and we got some proposals back. And so that was great. So we did some negotiations. We finally ended up signing the contract. Wasn't really sure how it was all going to pan out, but as you will see, it worked out really well. So we started the transitioning around 2022. We had to transfer all the stuff, and I've never done that before. Fortunately, our new publisher partners were awesome in figuring all that out. They had a marketing department, a real marketing department now, and they helped us design a new logo, and I had some help in designing the new cover, which I think is pretty neat. So that was a fun process. So finally, 2023, we launched. Okay, so we have this new partnership with EDP Scientists, our new publishers, and they helped us with the other big change, which was that we suddenly now became open access. We did the open access model, which means now anybody can download any of our articles as soon as it's published. Okay, it's free for all. The authors own the copyright now. And so as long as you cite them, acknowledge them, you can use their material. The 6-month PubMed Central embargo, gone. And now we were complying with a lot of funders, right? The NIH and so forth. They require people receiving their funding to publish in an open access journal. So we were now able to do that. The authors are the ones who have to pay now, article processing charge, which might be a change there, but we only charge $12.50, I believe, per article, and that's actually pretty reasonable. But if you're an MSEC member, you still get a perk, right? MSEC members get to publish for free. And if you're from a developing country, we can adjust the charge and so forth. So a little bit more about EDP Sciences. Never heard of them before, right? I hadn't before. They are based in France, but they're about a medium-sized publisher, and they're actually been around for a long time, since 1920, founded by eminent scientists like Madame Marie Curie. So, that's pretty cool, and the European Learned Societies. So they're an international, inter and multidisciplinary academic publisher. They publish a lot of other things, which are mostly open access, and they have contributors from all around the world. So one of the first things they helped us do was to try and get the journal to be more easily found out in the publishing world. So we needed to be abstracted and indexed in as many services as possible. The main one being up here, the director of open access journals. That was big. We got that towards the end of last year. They accepted our application, and that means that we met the standards that open access journals all have to meet. So, and that really helps us with applying for other things. Like we don't have an impact factor yet, but the same process we'll be going through, uh, as we did with DOAJ. And now we had a new website, which was awesome. Our entire archive is now there. It's searchable, it has tags and all that. So, we are where we need to be. And we had, as well as a better social media presence, which is also awesome. The other new feature we have is this thing called Flipbook. So, now that we're digital only, anybody can find any article they want just by searching. But, if you miss the old experience of flipping through an issue, EDP Sciences came up with a flipbook which allows you to do that digitally. So you can flip through it page by page, and our advertisers can see their ads in there as well. Because if you're just downloading each article, you're not going to see the ads necessarily. So we had to have a way for them to be visible. And we are also considering printing out some of these flip books, making it available for people who still want to pay. Some people, Theron is one of them. He said, I want to have that old experience of flipping through. So we're going to try and make that happen. So now that we're modernized, we can pull up all kinds of reports and metrics and all that. So let me just report to you what we have in the first year. We are still a pretty international journal, so about half our submissions come from the US and the other half from around the world. You can see here our downloads from our website, starting from 0 in January of last year and going up from there. In August, the full archive became available, and you can see there's a spike in downloads up there, and hopefully that's going to keep going up or be sustained. Here you can see the top 10 most downloaded articles. Again, we didn't have access to this kind of information in the past. And we had information from PubMed Central. You can see you can still follow that. We still have a good amount of downloads throughout the year. Just as an aside, PubMed Central, you can also look up to see the 10 most downloaded articles from their entire archive of JECT papers. And this, if there's still students here, I'd like to point out that the number one on this list here was by Corey Allwood when he was a student. And he published this with my predecessor, Dr. Doug Larson at the U of A. His one, number 1 and number 9 is also a student from U of A. So students, if you publish a strong research review paper, you can make a lasting impact. And you can be, along with the, in the same group as Greg Matt and Dr. Del Nido, which unsurprisingly is number 2 here on this list. You can see Dr. Syed Waltham here is New Zealand, an anesthesiologist and intensivist. And then, of course, best practice guidelines are another one that is popular. People download that. And you can see the group of perfusionists that were involved in helping set up these guidelines, and was co-published with a couple of other big journals. We don't have an impact factor yet, but most journals, you're able to look up your site scores. And when I took over the journal, I looked it up. Our site score was about 0.82. In 22, it's 1.3. So, we got this slow progress up there. And hopefully now that we're open access, that will continue to rise. There are all kinds of rankings out there, different categories. as you can see here. And so hopefully, we will progress on all fronts. Website traffic, we didn't track that before when we were on AMSEC's website, but now we can. So you can see it going up. This is just the first half of last year. You can see where people are coming from. Most people looking up JECT from the US, but also around the world. So this is the first half, and this is the second half of last year. Lots of people coming in from India and European countries and so forth. We can also see how they are finding us, right? Obviously from MSECT, but also people find us through Google. And a shout out to Luke with the tiny letter, helping drive traffic to JECT. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to transition a little bit and talk about how a manuscript gets processed for publication and who all is involved here. So I'm just going to start from the beginning, right? We're nothing if authors are not submitting manuscripts, right? So when a manuscript is submitted, it goes to a managing editor who checks and makes sure all the forms are signed, the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and so forth. And then it gets sent to the editor, which is usually me. I select peer reviewers to review the manuscript. Now, previously, even though I had been a published author, I was not really familiar with the backside of this, where an editor is trying to find an expert to review your paper and what all is involved in it. And I have come to really appreciate my peer reviewers. They do an awesome job in coming up with their comments and questions and so forth for the authors. And this is not meant to be something to bring down the author or to knock them down in any way. They're trying really hard to help improve that article when they do the work that they do. They come back with reviews. It's not that easy, to tell the truth, to find peer reviews. Sometimes I have to reach out to 5 or 6 of them to get 2 or 3 reviews because people are busy. And so I'm really grateful to the ones who accept to go ahead and review manuscripts. Bharat is complaining because one year he got like way more than everybody else, and he accepted them, so he's awesome. So the reviews come back to me, I consider them, and sometimes they're very different. Somebody is saying rejected, and other people are saying accept with minor revisions. And so, it can be a bit of a balance that I'm trying to do. But ultimately, those comments go back to the authors unless it's outright rejected, which doesn't happen too often. But we always try to work with the author to get that article up to some level that is publishable. So the author makes revisions, sends it back to us. I look at it and see if the revisions adequately respond to the peer reviewers' queries. If yes, it goes ahead into publication. If no, then I decide whether I want to send it back to the peer reviewers, or I might send it straight back to the author and say, hey, you didn't really answer the questions. So this can happen, a couple of cycles, hopefully not more than 1 or 2, where the paper goes back to the authors for revisions, and new revisions come in, and we look at them and consider whether it's adequate or not. So eventually it gets accepted, hopefully, and then these manuscripts will go to the publishers, and then they're published online right away ahead of print, a version of it. At the same time, the publishers now in France are working to typeset it, make it into a nice PDF. And sometimes they have some minor corrections that they need, or they might have to ask the author some questions. Did you really mean to say this or that? and the author gets to make final corrections. When they submit their final corrections, then the article is ready, and when the entire issue is ready, then it's published for real. Okay, so that's sort of all the players in the process to get a article out. So, would you like to get involved? How can you get involved? Right. First of all, of course, read the journal. If there are no readers, then why are we doing what we're doing? So, pick it up, encourage you to look through it, flip through it, use the flip book for sure. We need readers to learn, what's going on in the literature. Also, we're nothing without our authors. So, there are many people to help you, mentor you if you would like to write something up. Like Juan Blanco reached out to Luke to get his article ready for publication, and there are plenty of people in the U.S. as well for students to consult and get help. But publish, submit stuff, and the peer reviewers would help you too. Speaking of which, this part here, peer reviewers, the opportunity to volunteer was not obvious to me before I became a peer reviewer. I thought it was like a select group, a secret society, a special club. Nobody really knew how to become a peer reviewer. So I'm trying to change that as editor-in-chief, trying to get the word out. I one of my goals is to try and get perfusionists, normally clinicians, to be more involved academically. And if you don't like to come up and speak for an hour like Bharat did, and I don't usually like to speak up on the stage either. This is where I contribute to our profession as a peer reviewer. It's a privilege because you get to see the stuff here before it even gets out into the open. You get to help improve it, and so it's rewarding in that sense. Also, if you get tired of working in the OR all the time and you want to do something different, if you've been working, especially for a few years, you might get tired of it. Yeah, you might want to try something else. You don't need an advanced degree to do this. Okay, last year's top peer reviewer was Molly from CHOP again. Something special about CHOP there again. But she's great. She accepts and she does awesome peer review work. And the previous top guy was Minho Lee, which is also a CHOP person. I'm telling you something about CHOP. But the other thing I want to bring out there is that I've tried to come up with a mentoring program for students. If students want to try their hand at reviewing a manuscript, there is a method I've come up with which allows students to be mentored by an experienced peer reviewer, and that at least gets you some experience to see what that process is like. And so you don't really need to have any experience as a student, but as a peer reviewer, to become an official peer reviewer, there are some minor qualifications that I look for. First of all, of course, you should be a published investigator. If you need to know what's it like on the other side, the receiving end of the peer reviews. You have to have been through that process before. So I look for that. But also, well, you need to be an expert. Everybody is expert in cardiopulmonary bypass, so that's usually not a problem. But I do like to get novice peer reviewers to have gone through an online modules of some sort so that you have some idea of the best practices in peer reviewing and some of the publication ethics that are in this area. A strong desire to contribute to our profession and society, motivated to help us editors make the decisions on what to publish. And ultimately, though, the driving force should be to help the submitting authors make the articles better. So even students I've seen are able to do a good job here, um, making suggestions to improve manuscripts. So your duties, the role descriptions are you got to meet deadlines. There's a checklist that we're coming up with that you have to make sure you complete, and your comments should be constructive. Sometimes I try out a new peer reviewer and it's a physician, and even they sometimes just come up with like 2 sentences. That doesn't help me at all. The really good peer reviewers will go through and list out this line, this sentence, rephrase this, do this different, this way or that other way. So, make concrete suggestions as well as overall, big picture. Are you answering the questions that you're trying to answer here? Are you interpreting the data correctly, and so forth? So, we need constructive comments to help the authors and to help us editors make the decisions as well. And sometimes, like I said before, the manuscripts come back for second round of reviews, and the peer reviewers hopefully will accept them again and go ahead and see if the manuscripts actually, meeting all the questions, queries, and suggestions that the peer reviewers previously raised. Okay, so I think I'm about out of time. I'm going to finish with telling you, JECT is your journal. As a perfusionist, this is one of 2 journals that are out there. So it doesn't matter if you are an AMSEC member or not. It's not a competitive thing. We're not competing with Perfusion Journal. In fact, a lot of people are involved with both journals. I'm looking at Richard there because I'm going to be tapping him for help as a peer reviewer. If you have any questions at all whatsoever, if you want to even run anything by me, is this worth writing up or not, or anything? I get questions all the time, even from doctors sometimes. Is this something that's within your scope of things you want to in your journal? And we're usually pretty open with what we accept, or what we would consider accepting. So that's my email, whether directly to my university or to MSECT. I'd just like to acknowledge the board of directors of MSECT. Tammy was the president throughout most of this, and she's been rock solid supporter. The leadership of the journal are the associate consulting and the past editors-in-chiefs. The EDP sciences people that I work closely with, Bijala here is based in the UK, Eleanor in Paris, and our society management company, Ewald, has somebody helping us out too. So I think I'll stop there. I'll take any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. This is
so let me just ask, how many of you have published a paper before? Published authors? That's a good number of you. That's great. How many of you are peer reviewers? How many of you have peer reviewed before? Not so many. So look at these guys if you have any questions. These are people I rely on. They're just, rock solid people.
Great. This is a fantastic work, Ray. Congratulations.
Thank you
You've
very
really
much.
taken the journal to the next level. While we're waiting for any other questions, I'll just ask, the flip books are a very nice touch. Are they available now online?
Yes. Usually they come out a few days after each issue comes out. Issue comes out quarterly, March, June, September, December, the 15th usually, and then the flip books a few days after that. So if you were to go in there now and look at any of the 2023 issues and the first one of 24, you'll see, you can view the flip book version. So encourage you to do that.
The question online was,
sure,
who provides the online training for peer reviewers, you mentioned?
There are other societies out there, other journals out there that do a much better job nurturing their peer reviewers, but they have modules out there that anybody can sign up for. And it doesn't matter what field you're in. So that one, I think the big one I like is the American Chemical Society. Doesn't matter, right? You just want to know what is needed to do a peer review. So if you contact me, I'll send you the link and some instructions on how to do that. And so, students should do that first, and as well as, perfusionists who have never peer reviewed before. And I usually pair you up with an experienced peer reviewer if you're early on, the inexperienced ones, like I'll pair you up with someone like George Justison over there. So when you're done with your peer review, usually you can see what other people said, other reviewers, and you can learn from them. You can see, oh, did they look at this article differently than I did, and see what you can learn from there. So,
I want to make a very quick comment, which
Sure.
is fantastic work in getting it on open access. I think we need to not underplay how important that is. I don't know how many people here have access to, subscribing journals. So how many of you can access ones through a paywall? Have you got any university links, or is it completely shut off for you?
Yeah, if you're not with a university, it can be hard to access journals.
And that's why people don't publish,
Yeah.
because they can't see the literature. They can see an abstract that tells you nothing. So that's an important thing. So, well done on that. That's great work. The other thing I was going to say is, from somebody who does do peer reviews, we need some help.
Yeah.
I'm a bit like Barrett. I had 76 last year.
Oh, wow.
Which is quite a lot of work. I try and say yes to as many as I can, but we need other people to do it. And there's no point just one person looking at everything all the time. We need a fresh pair of eyes. I don't know everything. I need other people to have a look at it, and they will see things that I can't.
And honestly, the old crowd, the old guard is retiring. So some of the people we've been depending on a long time are retiring. I have some surgeons who are peer reviewers, and they're retired, but they're rock solid. They'll say yes to a lot of submissions. And but then the perfusionist guys are retiring. So I'm trying to raise the next generation, and hopefully, a few years down the road, you guys would be the leaders in peer reviewing. Go ahead.
Hi, so real quick, I just want to know, because you guys are using the term peer review, I don't know what that means. So explain what that entails before I sign up to help.
Very good. So peer review, is what it sounds like. So the manuscripts are sent out to at least 3 people who are considered experts in the area. And they're going to look through the paper really carefully, read it every line, and look for ways to improve it. And a lot of times authors think, they made their best effort when they submit a manuscript, and there's always, just about almost always, some things that it can be improved with. So, from grammar all the way, well, we try not to have you correct, if somebody's English is really bad, then they need to have some language help. They have to go to a service to help them with that. But minor grammatical stuff, please, yes, help. But also, more importantly, the science, to evaluate the science. Is this really saying, is the data really supporting what they're trying to say, that the claims that they're making? So there is a little bit of familiarity with, like if an article came in that was on pediatric patients, I'm not going to send it to an adult perfusionist. I'm going to look for pediatric perfusionists who have experience with a particular technique or not, and they'll know whether this is really a novel idea or not so novel. If this has already been something that's common practice, maybe we wouldn't want to publish that. I don't know, Richard, do you want anything else to add to that? Give him the mic.
Yeah. I just want to thank JECT for giving me a forum to publish. Several of my ideas are like, people said, you're an idiot. What are you saying? 3/8-inch venous line is better than 1/2 inch? You're an idiot. Don't try to publish that. Well, JECT stuck with me with my data and published that. Optimizing blood management with the rotor pump versus centrifugal. Well, we already know that. Why are you doing it? Well, you know what? People are actually doing that because it's not published. And people actually say, no, we want to use centrifugal pump for little neonates with the 500 ml prime, because there is no data. So JECT gave me that forum to publish that data. And I appreciate that. Thank you very
Well,
much. for
like
the
I
work
said,
you do.
this is your journal, right? It's only, perfusionists that will appreciate a lot of this. If you send it to another journal, a SIO journal, they're probably not interested in some of this. So we're running out of time. I'm done. Thank you.